Okay, we can probably get started. So this is our 22nd 4844 call. So yeah, I guess it makes sense to go over all of the spec changes that we discussed in Alcor Devs last week. I know there's been some new PRs about that. And yeah, then at the end, if we have time, we can cover the state of DevNets and if we want to get a target for DevNet 6. But I guess to start, Matt has a draft PR, basically that removes RLP, that removes SSD from 4844 on the EL side. It's been open for a couple of weeks, but he asked on Alcor Devs if people could review it to see that yeah, there weren't any issues with it before we merged it in. So I don't know if anyone has thoughts on the PRs or anything they wanted to discuss about it. Okay, so everyone happy if we go ahead and merge this as it is? Okay, I'll take that as a yes. Cool. I'll ping Matt after the call and let him know. Yeah, so we can go ahead with this. Mikhail, you had a PR to add to validate the blob version hashes in the engine API. Do you want to give a bit of context on that? I saw you just opened the PR. Oh, is Mikhail here? He is not. So, okay, so this is a PR. I see Gajinder and Terrence have both +1 that. Do either of you want to give a bit of context?
Sure. So last week we discussed on pushing the RLP validation from the CL to EL. That means that on the consensus side, when you receive a block, you will convert the KZG commitment to the version hash and then send it to the EL via the new engine API call. So it's the same as the new validate payload call, except now you have a parameter that includes the version hash. So yeah, so that's what we discussed. And on the CL side, luckily we don't need to add the new version hash to the block field because we have the KZG commitments, so we can do the conversion instead. But we do need a minor update on the spec. They just basically say that, hey, now we have to use this new API call. So that should be a very simple CL change. I'm not sure if anyone's working on it though, but yeah.
Yeah, I don't think anyone's working on it. Xiaowei and I should chat about it. Hey, Xiaowei. And one of us should pick it up. It's really the removal of a function and then the change of the interface to notify payload, which is kind of our abstraction for the engine API to pass those fields in. That's very minimal, and it's really kind of a subtraction rather than addition on the consensus layer.
Sorry, I just joined. I can pick up the changes after that. So when I was looking at it, one minor issue is that the place we handle the version hash in CL code is a little bit far from the process execution payload. So it just like we might have to move the sequence of state transition. But that should not be a big issue.
I mean, just to check for the validity of the payload, and I can sort of make the corresponding change in consensus specs to reflect this.
Okay. Anything else on that PR and the upcoming change we need to make to the CL specs? Oh, and I saw Proto just had a comment Okay, so he's basically saying he's fine with updating everything to SSD at a later date. Okay. Next up, so the other thing we discussed on Encore Devs last week was the endianness from the EL side. I know there's been some more discussions on the Discord, and specifically about like the scope of the change didn't necessarily seem clear to everyone. So yeah, sorry, and I'm trying to pull it up right here, but yeah, I guess, does anyone have thoughts about just this transition of using Big Endian completely on the EL? Okay, yes, and I have your PR, Gajinder. Oh, and Matt, I saw you just said that Blake 2 uses Little Endian on the execution layer.
But I think it's the only exception. Like everything else, all the other precompiles and the EVM, it's Big Endian. Blake 2 is the only exception.
Did we look through all the other precompiles? I'm not super familiar with the inputs on them. I mean, it doesn't really matter that much to me. I just know that we're kind of saying this is an argument that everything else is Big Endian, and I realized that Blake 2 was not, and so there is precedent of having some Little Endian. Maybe it was just an oversight. We should do whatever the best thing to do is, and I just am not the person who's going to be interfacing with this or writing the software that interfaces this, so whatever those people think is the right Indianness is what we should do, in my opinion.
It seemed pretty clear on Awkward Devs that like people wanted to do Big Endian from the EL side. And then the question is just, if we do that, does it impact the libraries to like too large of an extent? And I know Dankrad and Kev had some like threads about that in the Discord. So
I mean, basically, so if we make the precompile Big Endian, then it would also make sense to then make the blobs themselves Big Endian, because otherwise you will have the same data potentially when you use the precompile on in range. You'll have the same data once in Big Endian, one in Little Endian, and that seems really confusing. So if we do that, it feels like the right choice is just to make everything Big Endian.
So the PRs include making blobs Big Endian.
okay, so we would actually make. So if the blobs are Big Endian, yeah, doesn't that mean that the CL then needs to deal with the Big Endian, and we're going to have the mirror problem?
Yes. Yep, correct. Which is probably why it was a terrible idea to start with, to have the CL be in Little Endian.
So
we-
most of the time, CL only needs to just verify the blobs using KZG libraries. I don't understand where the CL would actually be interpreting the content of the blobs. And now we also have version hashes that CL will supply, which EL will check. So CL does not actually has to check whether the transaction and the version hashes match. So basically transaction and the commitments match, because CL is creating the version hashes for EL to check whether the transactions and the created version hashes match. So as of now, I don't see whether CL actually needs to interpret the blob.
Sorry, I really didn't follow. Could you repeat that?
So the only point the CL was interpreting the blob as of now was checking whether the KZG commitments and the transaction version hashes match. So as of now, if there is a change that CL will send the version hashes, computed version hashes to EL to match. So basically CL only has to do kick off the commitments. And so CL right now does not need to interpret what the blobs are. So it does not actually need to know what the content, whether the content of blob is big Indian or little Indian.
Doesn't the CL have to interpret it whenever it computes the KCG commitment? It verifies the KCG commitment?
So that is happening through KZG library, which will basically it's sort of transparent to, it's opaque to the CL. And as far as I can remember, that CKGZ guys, I think have told me that the KZG libraries will automatically check whether the BLS field elements, they are basically under BLS modulus. So basically CL doesn't need to do any check. They just need to pass, verify blobs, batch or whatever, and everything else will be handled by the KZG library.
Right, so Lifeline has a comment saying like, it seems like based on what you just said, we can use big Indian in the EL and little Indian in the CL. Is that correct?
Sounds like
So
that's the case. If we push it to the library.
So CL little onion only deals with SSZ types of the blobs to sync them, and essentially, I mean, I don't see how it has any impact on how to interpret the blob. No blob interpretation as of now is happening on CL side.
Yeah, it seems like I don't see a reason to make it big Indian on the CL.
What do you mean, Matt? You don't see a reason to make the blobs big Indian?
Yeah, I mean, it should probably, the thing should probably just be the like normal SSE values, and if they're stored little Indian, then that's how the libraries are called. It doesn't seem like that's an issue.
Well, so I think they should be encoded as big Indian if we make the precompiled big Indian. Now you can say that that from the CL point of view, it's just blobs of data rather than being an integer. So that's probably a fair argument. You can argue that, but I guess I'm not completely sure how this abstraction will stand up with future upgrades, say proof of custody and data availability sampling. Probably fine for data availability sampling, not so sure about proof of custody, to be honest. Just like it does, like, yes, theoretically, like at this point when it's just blobs, you can probably say, oh no, it's just data. So like, yes, in actual CL code outside of the libraries, you will never have to actually implement anything big endians. That's agreed.
Yeah, I agree. CL doesn't need to do anything big endian because I mean, again, that it's just blobs and some unit array for CL. And,
but I'm saying this is now. Yeah, I think you're not like seeing what like the future upgrades might bring. But I mean, I still agree it's our best option. But I think like future upgrades might make it necessary that the CL will actually have to deal with this as integers, and then it will become big endian.
How can the CL deal with it? Like,
As far sorry, as far as I understand, future updates only have erasure coding in it, and again, I think it can be easily handled.
No,
over
there are
the-
other. I think do you know about the proof of custody? That
Yeah,
definitely
can we
involves
read that?
computations on this data. I mean, again, we will see how much we can put them into libraries, but it will be more complicated because it also involves the private key of the on the CL side.
So, okay. I'm not quite sure where to take it from here. Like, it seems like, I don't know, people have a bit of a different view on what's possible and like where, like whether we can actually not have the, big endian dependency leak into the CL, but yeah.
Well, I mean, it's like everything is possible, right? I mean, you can deal with any endian. It's like it's just an engineering problem. The question is like how annoying it will be in the future. Yeah. And I mean, I agree that right now it seems just making everything big endian is the right thing, and that like yes, right now the CAL can contain all that in the cryptography library, which is good. I'm just saying as a warning, like there is like at least in the proof of custody, I see a future upgrade where that abstraction might break down. Like that's just something to be aware of now that we're introducing now basically down the line. I think this might cause us to having to deal with 256-bit big endian integers in the CL.
Okay, and so I guess just to move on this call, does it make sense to agree to this here? Probably want to mention it on the CL call later this week when we have all the teams there. But yeah, basically propose having big endian on the CL, and it would probably be good if we can have like a PR showing this by the Thursday call. Okay, no objections. So, okay, let's do that then. So, yeah, we can bring it up on the agenda for Thursday, and hopefully, I guess, does anyone want to volunteer to write that PR on the CL side?
What is this PR, Tim?
Sorry?
What exactly is this PR? Sorry, I didn't get that.
So using big endian, like what would require big endian on the CL? Which is what I...
So that PR is already in. I shared that.
Okay.
So it's just basically introducing a new constant, endianness underscore KZG. And
okay.
that is basically being used in all the polynomial commitments.md.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, is that that seems like it's is that the one Gajinder, the one that Andrew just shared in the chat?
Yeah, that's the one.
Okay, cool. So let's just make sure to like briefly touch on that on the CL call to yeah, at least make all the CL teams aware. Okay, next up, Jimmy Chen had an update to the builder spec. He can't make the call, but he wanted to share this here. I don't know if anyone had any feedback. I know Gajinder, you left. Oh no, sorry, this is from January. Oh, you left some feedback as well 3 days ago. But I don't know if anyone else had anything they wanted to mention or concerns about this?
It mostly looks good. I mean, feedback was just some issues with how the typing was done, but everything else seems good.
Okay. Great. And then, yeah, people can comment on the PR directly if there's anything else, but yeah, just wanted to flag that. Then next up, Matt, you had a renaming to call data hash blob hash instead. Do you want to give context on that?
Yeah, so on EOF, there is this notion of having data sections within the contract. So you have your executable code, and then you have data that's not executable. And so there's some opcodes that you'd expect to interact with that data, things like data copy. And the data hash sort of conflicts with that naming scheme from EOF. And it's not really clear, is it the data hash of the blob call data, or is it the data hash of the data section? So I think the blob hash is just a little bit more aligned with how we're talking and thinking about that blob data.
I don't like it. No, actually, I also like it. It makes sense to me.
It's weird you're disagreeing with yourself there, right?
I have severe multiple personality disorder.
Does anyone dislike blob hash? I really like it. Okay, I guess no objections. Let's merge it.
Can a 4844 author approve it? Do those exist here?
Dankrad is a 4844 author, I think, right? Yes. Okay, so Dankrad, if you can approve Matt's 2 PRs, that would 6985 and 7001. Just so he doesn't force merge.
Yeah, once I get back to a computer, I can try to do that. Yes.
Awesome, thank you. Okay, anything else on the spec? Okay, if not, yeah, anyone want to give an update on DevNets?
Before we do that, there was a PR showed in the Mario shared a PR in the Slack.
Oh, in the chat.
Yes.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Yes, I just wanted to chime in just because it also needs author approval. So.
And this is the one we discussed on Awkward Devs, right?
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah. I guess Matt can approve this one. I think the point with Matt is just because he's an author, he doesn't want to approve his own PR, like force merge his own PR, but
yeah, if it's okay, if this PR is okay, I can approve it.
Yeah, I think on Awkward Devs, we were all in agreement that we should move forward with this. Okay, yeah, DevNet 5, anyone want to give a quick update on where things are at?
Yeah, I can give a quick update. I guess I haven't checked on it this weekend, but last state was we were running into some issues with Prism being able to sync. And I believe the only remaining CL that was still healthy was Lighthouse. So on the execution layer, we had some issues with Aragon as well. Those I tracked down the issues and fixed, but which is when we turned up the issue with being able to sync from scratch. And things started to get stuck. So last I checked, we still had a Prism Geth client that was running successfully because it had been going since Genesis and hadn't been restarted. Any of the ones that were restarted have since died. But the Lighthouse, Aragon, Lighthouse Prism clients were still going. I think maybe Lighthouse Ethereum JS as well. So yeah, I think Lodestar was having issues as well. I don't know if Gajender can give an update on that, whether that's been fixed or not. Gajinder, are you still on?
Yeah. So, yeah, I think the issue was that after 95,000 slot, basically Lobster or any other CL that I noticed was not able to find a peer to sync the blocks from, and I didn't see any issues with regard to request response. I mean, it felt like that the ping to the peers that was not getting successful. So it was not at the level of any of the request response block methods. I'm not sure why why Lighthouse was not able to serve the peers. So it seems to me that as of now, the development is stalled because except Lighthouse, no other peers, no other clients can sync from it. And this is sort of my analysis of this situation.
No, that's right. There was some concern that Lighthouse may be blocking non-Lighthouse peers. And I guess someone provided us with a flag to disable that. I don't believe we've turned it on yet. So that's probably the next step to try.
I thought that no man still it didn't work. I mean, that was my question.
Gajinder, I'd be happy to like look into this with you. If you want to like catch up after the call. But yeah, I think we are still like we're finding bugs locally with Lighthouse peering and with like serving by roots request, for example. So I wouldn't be surprised if there are issues with serving other peers.
Yeah, I don't know. Terrence, are you on the call? Is there any update with Prism? Do you think this is the same issue?
I'm not so sure. I haven't looked at it. I think so Prism is stuck at the issue where, remember we talked about that, so blobs by range, uses the slots as a gap, but right now there's also, the number of commitments in the middle too. So sometimes like it's weird if it's out of bound because you're supposed to multiply the slots by the number of the commitments. So there depends on how the responder peer does it. Sometimes they may serve you too many, sometimes they may serve you too little, but when they serve you too little, then in Prism's case, we just couldn't sync. So yeah.
I'm not sure I followed that entirely. Is this what's returning too few commitments?
Oh yeah, so it's the blobs here. So blobs by range. If in the event that say today there's like 4 commitments in a slot, and then we get the cases where the only like 1 is being returned instead of the 4, because it's not multiplying the commitment number by the slot.
So I guess the question, what is doing that? That sounds like it sounds like you're describing a bug. Where is this coming from?
Right, this is like a bug on the some clients have this bug. I'm not sure if it's fixed. That's what we talked about on Discord like a week ago. So there's some disagreements there between blocks by range and blobs by range. But yeah, we can
Could this
follow
easily
up
show
offline.
up? Could this show up in Hive?
Yes, it could show up in the Hive, right? So say today, if you do blocks by range and then you do blobs by range right after, you should get the blobs that reflect in those blocks. But then we were not getting that. And yeah, I think Hive is a very good test target for this.
Are we talking about returning the blobs from the execution client, or is this at some other point?
This is P2P. So it's not the EL.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. The only test we have right now in Hive is for returning the blobs from the execution client to the CL inside the get payloads. But I think this is something else, right? Okay. Yeah, I need to check on that because we don't have tests yet for that.
Yep.
Yeah.
We can
I
follow
can
this up
work on it.
It's just a bug.
Okay.
Do we have any tests against the independent, just CL P2P messages?
Not in Hive. No. We have only for the engine API right now. Yeah, basically the intermediates.
Might be a good thing to open up.
I think there are a couple tests in the 4844 interop, like Docker Compose repo.
Is there a spec ambiguity here?
There shouldn't be. But like other clients just maybe interpret it wrong. But yeah, I think the spec is fairly clear here.
Okay, so, but we're not aware of which clients are interpreting it this way, but perhaps it sounds like it's probably Lighthouse since that's the one that can't see
I
it.
don't know. I forgot. I think I have to look at Discord conversation, but we talked about that a few weeks ago. But I guess people are busy with something else. We haven't gotten into fixing the bug yet. But there is a bug there.
I can look into if Lighthouse is incorrect here. Yeah, I remember the conversation last week and I thought we interpreted it correctly. Apart from we just had like a maximum response that was too big, but I might be wrong. I'll double check.
Gajender, is there something we can check on the Lodestar side as well?
You're on mute. Gajender.
Oh yes, I have two mute buttons. One is on the software and one is the real button. Sorry. So yes, I will check on the Lodestar side, but I think we also take it as slots, the count to be as slots.
Okay, so I guess if this is clear in the spec, is it just a question of Lodestar and Prism fixing an issue on their end? And then potentially adding some Hive tests or somewhere else to catch it?
Yeah,
Yeah, might be a Lighthouse issue. Yeah, it might be a Lighthouse issue. And we haven't been testing against Hive yet, so we can work on that in the next like week or so.
Just to give a little bit more context about Hive, I don't think at the moment we have any similar tests from peer-to-peer in the Beacon client. So we need to write a new test suite for this. Yeah, it's gonna take a little bit longer than usual to write the test because there's no test suite that specifically does this kind of test yet. Yeah, that's it basically.
Yeah, I mean, it would be high value to at somewhere in a deterministic place before we get the test nets test some of the stuff. Obviously, we don't really have a systematic way to test the CL-P2P and haven't since phase 0. But if we can move in that direction, it would be a good idea.
Yeah, definitely. I think there's a lot of. This is specifically what Hive is for. It's just that we haven't used it for that yet. Yeah. But definitely, I will start to work on it, and if I need some help from you guys, I will let you know.
Awesome, thanks. Is there anything else on DevNet 5 that we're seeing that we feel like we should take time and address? Or
I think that's the main thing, right? It's pretty an unhealthy state right now because of this issue. I think once you get that resolved, and that's the only one that I'm aware of that's still holding things back. Other than that, we just have to get implementing the new changes that came in all core devs around DSSA-ification.
Yeah, and RLP-ification.
Right. So I don't think we want to put too much into this DevNet. It would be good to resolve this issue and confirm at least that everything's healthy when this is taken care of. But at that point, I think it's probably worth shutting it down and going on to the next one.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. And then also, writing some, if we can write some test suites in parallel to fixing the DevNet, so that like when we have people joining the next one, we also have better static tests that we can run the clients against. That would be amazing. So does it seem realistic that like in the next basically week or two, we resolve these issues and get the implementations done for like the RLP changes and the endianness, and in our call 2 weeks from now, we can spend most of the time discussing DevNet 6 and trying to get that set up. And obviously we have the 2 all core dev calls before that if we're quicker than that, but yeah, at the latest, yeah, we can chat about that 2 weeks from now. Sweet. Anything else anyone wanted to discuss today?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Okay. Please go ahead.
Oh, thanks. That small issue which is still not resolved is about CKZG library for all CPUs. I mean, we need to know will BLST library be updated, or we just need to implement that switch by ourselves as execution layer developers and CKZG library developers. And additionally, we could try to test this case by adding some nodes to the DevNet, maybe next DevNet, with these old CPUs to confirm that block verification is performant enough and works on every side. That's 2 issues. That's it.
This is the compile time detection of, runtime detection of CPU capabilities.
Yeah, should we do that in CKZG, or BLST will be updated to consider such case?
I don't know how you would do that in CKZG. I think it has to be done in Blast.
Okay, but shall we wait for this fix on BLST side or not? Because well, this is a problem, but not sure if it will be resolved there at any time in the future. Because
Yeah, I get what you're saying. They don't seem very interested in fixing it from my perspective. It would be great if we could, as a community. I'm not even sure that they would accept a PR that fixes it.
Yeah, I thought I thought Peter had suggested writing a PR, but I haven't checked the thread.
Yeah, he did. Once again, I don't know how complicated or simple it would be to do that. I'm leaning towards I think it'd be pretty complicated.
There
Sorry,
was a few.
Unfortunately, this is there's this Perl script which generates the assembly, so it is like kind of annoyingly complicated to make changes to this if you don't know it well.
Okay.
There is a discussion, a few comments in this.
We will have a call with Supranational.
Bankrad, you're really breaking up. We've basically lost you.
Yeah.
I think he said they're gonna have a call with Supranational.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Right?
I did reach out to someone at Supranational privately, and they did see the comments. They just haven't made a comment back yet, and they were going to discuss it internally sometime this week.
Okay, that's good.
The second question was, is it real to have such CPUs on DevNet next time? Like, seems a good test case in terms of stability and performance.
Yeah, well, is there something else we can do?
You mean something else for this runtime detection?
Oh, yeah. Okay, so we can add, with the runtime
Yeah.
detection, this is a change we want Supranational to do, correct?
Yeah, the only one workaround I know is on this issue number 10, where you can basically work around this problem by loading 2 instances of BLST libraries, and then in your app change, in your client change, check the CPU and call the corresponding copy of BLST. This is something you can probably do if you need as soon as possible, but if Supernation is considering, I mean, if they see this these comments and are willing to do something, then probably best to wait a bit and then see what to do. But there is a ugly workaround for this problem. It's great, so we can.
Yeah.
We agree to change the list. And, yeah.
Well, we can try, and in the meantime, yeah, use the workaround. Okay. Anything else? I know there was a second. I think Mario, it was you who also had something you wanted to share.
Yeah, basically, okay. So first of all, I want to share the link to the test that I will be referring to. So this is the one. So yeah, basically this is the EVM test vectors in the form of blockchain tests, and they do contain a lot of 4844 EVM focus tests. So I wanted to propose that before the next DevNet, we make the running of this execution spec test mandatory. Yeah, for the next DevNet, because I think most of the execution layer issues that we found in the previous run could have been caught if we had run this test on all plans. So yeah, basically, I think if we clear out this issue before the DevNet, we will save a lot of debugging time, and we will find more productive issues, more relevant issues that will be definitely more interesting. So right now, there's some spec changes that are not yet in the test, but I will make sure that all of these spec changes are in these tests, and we will make another release before the next DevNet. So I don't know if that sounds good with everyone.
Yeah, I agree. That would be really useful.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so we will be releasing another bunch of another file with newer tests with the spec updates for everyone to run before the next DevNet.
Awesome. Sweet. Anything else?
In the chat, there was another mention of the removing contract creation from the blob transaction. I assume that's still not controversial, and added that to our list of PRs to get merged.
Which PR was that? Sorry.
Matt we discussed it. I believe it was last week. To disable contract creation, the optional to field. Remember?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Does anyone here have thoughts about this? And I assume it would be possible to add this in another hard fork if we wanted to, right? Like we could launch with it disabled and then 6 months after enable it.
Now that it's RLP, I don't know enough about RLP optional handling. Who's our RLP expert here? Is that an encoding format change if we decide to make it optional later on?
It's just that we don't allow contract creation transactions, so the to address has to be present.
It would, it would change the RLP encoding. And one thing I'm thinking about, it would add another thing that we need to check.
We need to make sure that it doesn't do the contract creation, but that's one check versus like a bunch of checks around different things. Like, does it work whenever you create a contract with a blob? Does it work when you create it with 4 blobs? Like, there's a lot of little things that you end up having to check. Does it work when you return code? Does it work when you don't return code?
Yeah. I don't know if it's you that's typing that or various.
But... We're just double checking with the RLP.
Okay.
I don't think it needs to change like the RLP encoding spec in the EIP, but we would need to add something to say the to address has to be present. The 4844 transaction type does not allow contract creation, which I can update the PR if people are still okay with this.
It's not, I guess it would, if people are okay with this, can you voice support? I don't know if people are okay with this or have not thought about it and don't understand the implications or something.
Well,
so
one thing was we added this when we were going to have to deal with SSZ optionals, right? So now that we're not doing that, I don't think it's as important. And then we have to ask, do we want this like non-standard or like, you know, non-uniform property compared to other transactions?
Yeah, I mean, I think that I and some other people that I've spoken to in the past have wanted to move away from having contract creation in transactions in general, just because it adds a lot of complexity when we add transactions, and we have the ability to do it from the EVM. So this may look like it's lopsided right now, but I think that going forward, we should consider just not allowing new transaction types to create.
Sure, but so this is like SSZ in general, like if we have this like discontinuity, when do we actually make the change?
Right now.
Okay.
I think we should I'm leaning towards this, but I think we should have like one more week to discuss it with like the RP experts in the Geth team. So I'm weakly in favor of like moving this along, but also having the option to say no at some point this week, next week.
Okay, yeah, let's do that. Then let's try to discuss it async this week. If for whatever reason we can't get agreement this week async, let's bring it up on Awkward Devs next week. But hopefully we can do that. Yeah.
Okay. I'll update that PR and post on sharded data.
Okay, thank you very much. Anything else anyone wanted to cover? Okay, well, yeah, thanks everyone. Can wrap up here and talk to you all on the Discord.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
See you
Thanks.
guys.